Welcome everyone to Ortelius Microservice Visionaries 2021. It's a pleasure to have you all guys with us. And today we are going to discuss a very hot topic in the field of microservices, that is observability and visibility. So as you know, like microservices have spanned the whole software engineering, and it has also created lots of new challenges in how we monitor our applications. So today here I have my dear friend and colleague Sacha Wharton from Ortelius. He is from Cape Town, and he's here to present a deep dive session into observability and visibility of microservices. So Sasha, over to you.
Thank you so much, Karam. Really appreciate it. It's awesome to be doing this talk with you. Right,
Same.
so we get started here. Okay, so just to introduce Ortelius, open source project, it's a microservice management platform that versions and tracks microservices, their blast radius, and inventory across clusters, providing a proactive view of your microservice architecture as it changes over time. Ortelius is an incubating project under the governance of the CED Foundation, also known as Linux Foundation. Our mission is to simplify the adoption of microservices through a world-class microservice management platform driven by a supportive and diverse global open source community. Right. Okay, so it's like Karam introduced, we're going to be talking about observability and visibility and how Ortelius creates visibility across all clusters. So let's get started. That's us. So that's Karam and myself. Just nice photos there. All right, so let's talk about monitoring verse observability and how does Ortelius help us move towards a proactive visualization and logical mapping of microservice relationships. So monitoring and observability are quite a hot topic at the moment, and I find that whilst doing this research, there was a lot of conflicting uses of the words, and they were used interchangeably. But basically what it boils down to, however you use it, doesn't really matter. In the end, it kind of boils down to, I found that monitoring is a reactive process that tells you when known problems have occurred. It gives you a systematic overview of time tracking the known and unknowns in the system. It uses instrumentation to show you performance, points of failure. It is also it's also very reactive. It's basically after the fact alerting. The problem has already occurred. But in today's systems, they've become increasingly complex, distributed, and dynamic. So this has changed the way we've always traditionally done monitoring. It's always been in place after the fact. The application gets deployed, then monitoring gets slapped onto that. But this is with this change into microservices and distributed services, it requires us to go now to sort of the next level, which is observability. And this allows us to proactively, this is actually the proactive making systems applications monitorable. And this is moving towards an active identification and making visible of unknown issues. And this information relies on logs and traces and metrics. So now we really have to move into this environment where we actually need to unearth what we need to monitor. Before we kind of knew what we needed to monitor, that was reactive. Now we need to actually design our monitoring systems or our observability systems, or visualization was also another word that was thrown in there, to be proactive. And they need to be started from the beginning of them when the application is developed. Right from the beginning, they need to be part of the design and the plan. They can't just be slapped on at the end. So how does, what does Ortelius do to give us this visibility across microservice clusters? Because they're complex, they're distributed, dynamic applications or systems, and they demand proactive and relational approaches to planning and managing microservice architecture. Obviously, there's configuration management to look at, and there's also various different environments There's not just one singular environment. There's multiple environments, multiple configurations, and these microservices are spread out. They could be global, they could be regional. It all depends on how your system is being set up and what you have to manage. So there needs to be some sort of proactive visualization, which Ortelius does, and gives us this logical mapping of microservice relationships and application dependencies across all clusters, not only just with a single cluster. It also gives us the insight into the now, and on the other side of it, it also allows us to understand the future of our applications. So Ortelius' core objects consist of domains, applications, components, environments, and endpoints. And I found that Ortelius answers, these are just some of the questions that I was thinking of. What does Ortelius answer? Like, what questions does it answer across these distributed services? And I came up with these 3 questions. I'm sure there's a whole lot more, but I jotted down these 3 is like, how are applications and services found? How do these applications and services work together? And what will be the blast radius of a change? So if you make a change to the system, what is it going to affect? What's it going to change across your entire distributed microservice architecture? So Karam wrote an excellent blog, which helped me understand and get a really good foundation about observability. And I had to quote his blog post in this presentation because it was just so brilliant. And it just explains what Ortelius uses to show these visualizations, because that's what they really are. They are proactive visualizations that almost work in near real time, and they really help you understand your application, like I said, like now and in the future. And for example, it's the use of the container SHA. It's the application baseline package and change software bill of materials. It's the revision history and the difference map. So you can actually use Ortelius to show that what was changed and what what is it now. You can track deployment logs. It combines this data to give you a complete overview of your application and how it interacts and how it has relationships with other microservices that are running in your environment. This is just to show you an example of a bill of material report. This, for example, is a blast radius report, and at the bottom is a difference report. You can see the different versioning at the numbers that show, these numbers, they show what the version was and what it is now. The bill of materials report shows you everything that makes up this cluster. The blast radius report is the one that shows you what it's going to affect if you were to change the card service, for example. Which of these services would it touch? And this is the power of Ortelius, that it really gives you this insight at a very quickly, and allows you really to bridge the gap between engineers and between the business. Allows the business to understand what is being done from a very visual level, and can really help strategically make the right decisions when deploying and upgrading or changing or improving your products and applications. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Sacha, for this great presentation. So what do you think, how has been the evolution of monitoring been from a monolithic to a microservice environment? How have things changed over the few years?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So beforehand, it was much easier to monitor a monolithic application, and that's why I say monitoring was put on at the end, because it was kind of, everything was self-contained into one environment, the application wasn't that distributed. It was always sort of put on an island and isolated, and it was quite easy then. Just you were fine with using monitoring to give you feedback on how your system was performing. And like I said, it was very reactive, because, for example, if you would know, like, you would know on a high level, like if you needed more memory or if your CPU was, what was an acceptable rate set for your CPU. But I don't think it was good enough for developers. There was just so many things that actually that needed to be monitored that could go wrong or could make a difference to the overall performance of an application. So we had to then and this was never going to work. This reactive type of monitoring was never going to work as we started moving towards a more virtualized environment. And now we're not only virtualizing on a on a virtual machine level now, the operating system. Now we've cut that out and we've gone straight down to the raw, to the binaries, and that can be spread out and run anywhere. You can be running thousands of these things, and this really meant that the way we do observability and monitoring had to change, and we had to find different ways, more innovative ways of understanding these relationships. And I think that's why we had to go to the next level and using things like traces to understand from the beginning to the end. So how the user's query would actually move through a system, what points it touched on. And this allowed us to really understand how users interacted with our applications. And this means we could make proactive decisions. And I think even in a sense, experiment and prototype, understanding like what happens if there was for example, maybe we were a product company. What happens if we decided to have a massive sale and we had like double the amount of users hitting our site? Now with the visualization from Ortelius, we understand exactly all these points that are going to be hit. So we could be proactive in making sure that this system was ready to handle more users, and we could really dive deep into these application components and make sure that they were able to handle this type of traffic. And that would mean changing whatever we needed to change to handle this. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
So like the evolution has been like with the monolithic application, we had a single point of failure, but with like the microservices, we can have lots of point of failure, and it's difficult to track. So we have to rely on these particular three pillars: logs, metrics, and traces to like help us out and find the bottleneck in our system.
Yes, exactly. So the great thing about Ortelius is that it would allow you to take these three pillars and actually ingest them into one single place, and allow us to aggregate those logs and traces and metrics into something that is visual. It's not like back in the day when you had to trawl through logs and terrible, having to try and read tiny little bits of text or trying to figure out some sort of a nasty script to try and highlight what you wanted to see. And anyway, there was just so much data distributed amongst systems. It wasn't centralized so well. Now that we have Ortelius, we can really understand the history and actually pull out what we want to see in these events, in these logs, and in these traces, in these metrics, and it allows us to see the complete picture. And see it very detailed actually. Yeah. So yeah.
So like Ortelius provides us with tools. One with the application, we can the business side of the people can see all of your microservices together as a single application or product, as well as from the developers or technical side of you, the teams can deep dive into the services and get more details about the deployment and all. So what is basically a single source of truth which integrates with all four existing tools that we have.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. It's a single source point. I always have a little bit of fun with the Lord of the Rings and call it the one ring to rule them all, because like we're going to have beer and donuts, and I was actually thinking of a donut. And the donut for me would symbolize all the services, that are packed in all around on the donut, and in the middle is Ortelius. Ortelius could be the jam, if you want to call it. And it would be able to aggregate all that different bits of pieces of information from all around it and be a central source for the developers to be able to actually see the impact that they are having on a system. And when they change things, what they are changing. And when they change it, what does it affect? So it really shows this cause and effect the whole time. And I think that is very valuable not only from a business sense in terms of how you can, how the business can plan ahead, but also in, I guess, also in kind of job satisfaction for developers who are just don't feel like they're just churning out code all day long, just churning out code. They can actually see the effect, and they can actually see the improvements that they are making in a system and how all these things fit together. I think it can create a lot of good team dynamics in that sense, that they're working towards this a common cause. Yeah, and as a team working together on something. Yeah.
So there has been a lot of tools that are helping us manage all these problems that we're having with microservices, which basically all these tools relies on these three pillars that we discussed. And there's been a new concept or talk going around about open telemetry, so which helps to like provide a standard where you don't get locked into particular vendor. So basically, OpenTelemetry is a set of APIs that is trying to set a standard, so you can easily integrate with one tool and move towards other tool. So how do you think what is the future like? Is it the future of monitoring with OpenTelemetry, or what do you think about it?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think OpenTelemetry is the future because it's API driven. I was also having a discussion the other day actually with Sergio, and yeah, and I was talking about another product which uses a lot of agents, and like this kind of takes that away. There's no more agents create for me an overhead, a management overhead. Whereas if you're using an API based type of tool, this allows you to actually streamline the kind of information you want out of that, and to standardize on something like this is just brilliant because it allows you to pretty much design and get creative the way you want to see the data, and you can choose what to pull in and leave out, and I think it gives an immense amount of flexibility in terms of visualizing this data and how you want to visualize it. Yeah, you can. I think the creativity is endless, and I definitely think something like OpenTelemetry is definitely the future. Yeah, definitely API driven types of things like that service this type of that service observability are definitely the way forward. Yeah, and can allow us to see things in near real time. I think that's what's super important. Yeah.
Right, Sasha. So like, how can we reach Ortelius? Like, where do we go to the website? How can we reach you? And how can we be part of Ortelius?
You can always go to our GitHub site, which you can find us here. You can also go and join us on LinkedIn and have a look at what's going on. You could follow me and ask me if you'd like to on LinkedIn. I don't mind helping out. They could also look for you on LinkedIn. And
Sure.
yeah, we are looking for people who really just want to come in and join and learn and create a really great community. It's a great community of people to be in, and to partake in something like this together with people from all over the world is a real privilege. And yeah, we would really welcome anybody who would like to come and join. And please go and check us out. Go and have a look at what Ortelius is. You can go to ortelius.io too. There it is, ortelius.io. And go and have a look what Ortelius can do and how you can get involved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sasha, for this great presentation. Nice to have you with us.
Thanks.